Today, we have the incredible privilege of sitting down with a beacon of hope and resilience, Michelle Gordon. A registered nurse, master neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and devoted mother of three, Michelle's journey is one of profound transformation. From the depths of hitting rock bottom, battling burnout, anxiety, and the grip of alcoholism, Michelle's path to healing was not paved with conventional support, but with her unwavering determination to find her own way. Today, Michelle stands as a passionate advocate sharing her journey. Through the darkest of times, she discovered her own path to alignment and blazed a trail toward a life brimming with health, happiness, joy, and abundance. And friends, her story is one of courage, strength, and really unyielding power of the human spirit. She is fully equipped with a toolbox filled with invaluable strategies and insights to help others seize back control of their lives and forge a path that aligns to their deepest selves. I am so excited for Michelle's profound experience, for her to uncover the strategies that propelled her forward, and honestly just learn how we too can navigate the tumultuous waters of life toward a place of authentic, vibrant existence. You are listening to That Big CEO Energy, where we talk all things business, life, marriage, and push you to a new edge of discovering what that big CEO energy means for you. Listen, I understand that we have barriers that we carry from when we were once employees, and those have impacted us as we continue to build our businesses. I'm here to walk alongside you and give you encouragement through interviews with friends and other women in business who have broken down those barriers and paved their own way. Tune in with me as we uncover some of the unconscious things that we do that keep us from building that big CEO energy we've always dreamed about. Let's dive in. Today, I have Michelle Gordon with me. Michelle, thank you so much. You are tuning in from the Big Apple, and you've been across the pond. So welcome. First, welcome to the US, the Apple, but also welcome to the show. It's such a pleasure to meet you, such a pleasure to have you here. And I'm really, really excited about this topic because I think that you have an amazing journey. And we all have our top three things that we can talk about on a dime. If somebody were to just say, what can you talk about for, a lifetime? You have your top three things. And for me, it hit home when you said from hitting rock bottom and relying on alcohol to thriving in life. I just thought to myself, oh my gosh, this is someone who I know has resilience, has tons of other qualities that just are going to be impactful. And so I want to open up the floor to you to just kind of explain to us your journey, sort of where you started and how you ended up where you are now.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I am here in New York. I am a long, long way from home. So I'm based in Australia. And yes, I am a mum of three children. I'm a nurse of 25 years. And a few years ago now, I hit burnout in my nursing career. And I had, it was literally rock bottom for me. I hit stage 12 burnout, which is end stage burnout, which is physical and mental exhaustion and collapse. And that's where I was at. And what really sort of was the turning point for me was waking up on the floor one morning after drinking several bottles of wine. And I had spiraled out of control, and I knew that I wasn't meant to be here. I wasn't meant to have this experience. I was a great nurse. I was a great mum. How did I get so burnt out and so how did I get into this space of life? And my beautiful husband was supporting me, but he didn't know how to help me. And that's where I decided that I was going to look after myself and I was going to heal myself and I was going to get some help. And so I embarked on this self-discovery journey, I guess, and I had tried some methods of help that was handed to me as a nurse. Based in Australia, we have a program. If you're in a hospital, and most hospitals and healthcare facilities have this, where they offer you some free counselling sessions, I guess. So I took them up and I wasn't getting anywhere. And that's when I embarked on a bit of a coaching journey, and I worked with two coaches and really had this big self-discovery about who I was and what I was here to do. And I realized that I was a people pleaser, and I realized that I was a perfectionist, and I realized that my mindset was very fixed. So I had a very fixed mindset, and I saw the world from the lens of fear, lack, and scarcity. And I worked on for 12 months cleaning all of those things up and really looking after my health. And when I came out the other side, I was me again. Like I found myself. I was like, this is who I am. And I'm a grown woman, I was in my early 40s at that stage. And along that journey, I had some of my colleagues and fellow nurses reach out to me and say, oh my gosh, like, what have you done, Michelle? You look so different. You look amazing. You're showing up really differently. You're really calm. You're so great in resus now, because I worked in an emergency department. So they were like, what have you done? You're so different. And I had so many of those nurses asking for me to help them. Can you help me? And that's when I realized I had a thing, like I had something to offer that I could help these women who were just like me, feeling burnt out, feeling really frustrated and stuck in this pattern of life that wasn't serving them. And that's when I embarked on creating what I had journeyed through into an online course. And I then became a coach myself. And so that was 5 years ago. And here I am now. I have my own business. I'm here in New York for my business. And it's been honestly such a magical journey. And I'm just like literally pinching myself that this is where I am now.
When you were turning to alcohol, what was happening in your life that you felt like alcohol was the answer? Was it just like a social thing that just kind of got, sometimes, social life can become very much now we're a full-blown alcoholic. Or was it something else just a little bit deeper that led you down that road?
Look, it was much deeper. And yes, alcohol has been a big part of my social life since I was a teenager. And it was an escape. When I look at it now, when I see that now, it was an escape. As a nurse, I learned to switch off my emotions. And then in the emergency department, I worked in that emergency department for 9 years. And the things that I saw and that I worked through and the people that I looked after and the situations that, you just can't make up. You just cannot make up and you can't unsee them. I never processed them because of the fact that I had to switch off my emotions and do my job. And then I would come home completely strung out in my own, beautiful home and environment. That was where I started to feel the feelings of my emotions coming back because I couldn't be completely numb to them. And when I would sit home in my quiet space, in my comfortable space, I'd start to feel yuck. And I'd start to question why these things were happening. And I'd start to replay the shift that over and over in my head of the previous 8 hours. And to escape from that, I knew that alcohol would numb that and buffer that out. And that became just the go-to. It was like, well, I just don't want to feel anything at all. So I'll just drink. Yeah.
My mother-in-law is an emergency room nurse, and it's interesting because she has a very different sort of mentality where some people can just turn it off, right? When they come home, that is just like the second they walk out the door, they're like, whoop, that was my job. I am now shutting it off, and I'm on the road, and that's just that. I think over 30 years of being a nurse, she's just gotten really good of like just putting up the wall. But what I see, though, on the other end is from a family standpoint, we've sort of experienced that wall on our end, too, of a little less emotion, right? A little more like when things have to be done, she is the doer. She is we just get it done. We are hyper focused and we are doing all the stuff and things.
Yes.
So I can only imagine what your family sort of was feeling on your end of like, what in the world is happening? You know?
Yeah.
Did your husband or your children ever come to you at one time and say, Mom, what in the world is happening? Or were they too young at that time? Or even, your lovely husband, did he ever come to you and be like, hello? What are you doing? What is happening?
Yes, such a good question. And I have a really beautiful story to share on this. My husband came to me and I was like, I'm not right. I'm not right. And he's like, I know. What can I do? Like, how can I help you? And I think I was too, like, I wanted to fix it by myself. I didn't want to have people, I didn't want to put him out, because he had then become such a important person in our family for the kids, right? Because I checked out, like I wasn't there. So I didn't want to then take him away from the emotional side from my children and absorb that up as well. So I was like, I'll deal with this. I'll work it out. Let me go, like leave it to me. And I was in that state for 2 whole years, right? I was in that state of mind and that burnout for 2 years. I was drinking heavily for 2 years. And what it came down to, so my 2 boys were 7 and 9 years old. So they were young. And they were like, Mom, they thought I was just a little bit odd and funny, like they just were like, oh, wow, it's just doing her thing. She sits on the couch and has a few wines and loosens up and relaxes, That was their kind of thing. But I could see that they were looking at me very differently. And I thought, this is not great, because this is how they see their mum coping on a day-to-day basis or not, of a nighttime. Now, what was the most profound thing from that? My little girl was 2.5 at the time. So she was just a tiny little toddler roaming around. She was just so tiny. And she came up to me one day, and this was what woke me up to then spark, I need to get help and I need to fix it now. She came up to me as I was sitting on the couch after another crazy shift. And I was sitting there. I'd had 2 glasses of wine by that stage. I was completely, numbing out and escaping. And she came up to me and stood right in front of me and reached out with her little hands and grabbed my face and just looked me in the eye and said, Mummy, where are you? And she just, she was just looking for me because I wasn't there. And that's what did it. Like, that's what woke me up. I had this pit in my stomach. Like, it was like goosebumps. And I went, rightio, Michelle, this is enough. Yeah.
Oh. Wow.
I know. Yeah.
Powerful.
Yeah. It still brings me. Yeah.
It's amazing. We think that, when we are in the middle of it, it is very hard to see 500 feet away. like you cannot most times pull yourself enough away from the situation to go, what in the hell am I doing? But your kids know, and I think that especially there is science, there is, like our kids are a part of us. And it is very hard for some of us to realize that they sense every little thing, especially when they're that little. How profound for her to just uh, call you to the moment, and good on you for taking that as an instance of like, oh, checkmate. We're going to do something here. So you go and you do the help and you get the stuff and things. What do you do now to make sure that you don't go back to that place? Because I think that's, when we live in a culture that is so defined by socially acceptable alcohol, right? And I feel like every function has alcohol, birthday parties, weddings, you name it. It is like, it's everywhere. And so how do you make sure now that that is not something that grabs back a hold of you and spins you back around?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I very much dived into my health and fitness. That became the habit that replaced the habit.
Sure.
I started going to gym. I really found this place of absolute peace and clarity when I was working out and training at the gym. And my husband was so beautiful in this part because I would come home from work. I'd had a big day and my usual was to throw my bag down, sit down for a bit and then go and pour that glass of wine. And that was my usual, routine. And he pretty much saw me, as I went through this big change, he would say, okay, you ready now? Get your gym gear on. And he'd pretty much hand me my bag and say, off you go now, because he knew that I would come home and I would be so different and I'd be so present and I'd be happy. And I wouldn't be turning to the wine to escape because I'd had my little escape. And that became the space where I just unwound. It was just like, decompressed. That's what the gym started to do for me, training in the gym. And so now that's a big value of mine is health and fitness. I love exercising. I'm not obsessed with it. It's just part of my self-care. So that became a big thing. And I started to process my emotions. So I now make time for my emotions. And that was something that I didn't do before because I didn't have time and I didn't have time to stop and do that. And that's a part of burnout. That's one of the early stages of burnout is you learn to disconnect from your emotions because emotions take time and emotions make you vulnerable and you don't have time to be vulnerable. You've just got to keep going. So now I really give myself the space to journal, to process how I feel, to explore that. And I speak with my own coach now, and I have that time to pull apart some things and how I'm feeling, which is really important.
When did you transition out of nursing? At what point did you move out of that?
In 2021. So this was 2018. I, hit that rock bottom moment. 2019, I was had that big transformation and I started to show up as, authentically aligned me. And in 2021, my dad passed away, which was quite sudden. I got to spend the last week with him, which was amazing. And it was at that point where I was like, what am I doing? I love nursing, but I actually love helping nurses more. Like, that's my passion. And I love to be in the coaching space. So I've done my NLP certifications. I've done some coaching certificates. I've done lots of things since then. And I was like, I have this gift that I need to share with people. Why am I still holding on to my nursing? So I very much transitioned from nursing fairly full time at that point to now very casually. So last year I took the entire year off to work on my business and my coaching offerings. And now I do nursing just casually when I want to. As in Australia, I have to practice so many hours to keep up my registration. So I'm not quite ready to let that registration go yet, but it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to come back to something you said about sitting with your emotions and giving time and space to those. What would be, and you mentioned journaling, so that is no secret on my channel. I mean, journaling is single-handedly the most powerful thing that you can do for yourself. Outside of journaling, what are some other things that you would recommend for someone that really just doesn't know, like, the world just feels really heavy and they have a blank notebook, they have, a pen, and they just don't even know, it's a really good question to say, I don't even know what I would write. I don't even know where I would start. What would you say to them?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Quietening your world down, allowing mum of 3 children, busy nurse who was working full time at the time. There was no space for me. It was just, I was in the busyness of life and I really needed to disconnect from that and sit with myself. And I tell you, the very first thing that I started to do was obviously go to gym. And that was my me time. There was no one else around me. The gym was very quiet at that time of the morning when I was going. And it allowed me, my exercises were rather than in your head or rather than be numbed out, like being so numb in just the daily routine of life. So exercise was a great way to get in my body. The other thing I did was walk to the beach and just in the early hours of the morning, and I would literally walk on the beach with bare feet and just be with myself. And that allowed myself again to just be in my body, allow my feelings to come up, allow my thoughts to slowly process them. And yeah, I feel like the answer is to get in your body and to start to feel again. Yeah.
I love that. Get in your body and start to feel again. What do you do right now to help nurses? What is kind of your wheelhouse?
So I wrote a program based on my journey. I really did. It took me 12 months. So in 2019, when I, came back into the world as me and had found me, when I had so many of my colleagues asking me what I'd done, I wrote every step down and I created, after 12 months of writing and really sort of figuring out what that process was that I took myself through, I have a formula. And that is now an online course. It's a 12-week process and journey through to really finding, to living your authentic, aligned life, to creating so much abundance and thriving in your life. And that's taken over 200 nurses through that. And, just last, like I tear up with all the messages, and she came to me completely burnt out. She came to me at the stage 12 where I was numb, exhausted, She hated her life. She has 3 children. She checked out on life like I was. She was at rock bottom and wasn't even able to get up out of bed in the morning. And she said, Michelle, I am just loving my life. I'm so awake and my kids have their mum back and my husband has his wife back. And I walk the dog and I'm in awe of the world around me because she's in it now. She's living her life. And that's pretty much the journey. And she said so much goodness has flowed from this journey, which it does.
Yeah.
When you're in alignment, you get to tap into the abundance of life. So she's got a job interview for this amazing aligned position that's opened up in her hospital. She's reconnected with her husband. They're planning their dreams together and their future together. And it's just magical. It really is.
I love that, one, that you have such a soul-centered just approach with, I can only imagine that you loving on other people, the way in which you were hoping that someone would have been loving on you would be the catalyst for someone to say, life is worth so much more than whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's alcohol or turning to, drug addiction sometimes and whatever that looks like. And I feel like sometimes we get stuck in this rhythm of, this is just my life now. This is how it's supposed to operate, right? I mean, I got myself here, so I'm just going to deal with it. There's more, right? You can do more and you can be more, no matter what age you are, and how profound that you didn't just lay down and be like, oh, here I am. This is just how it's going to be now,
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love you. I love this.
Thank you. Oh, I love that.
Oh,
Yes.
What final words would you have for someone that's listening that just kind of maybe is thinking they could possibly have a problem, but they're not quite sure?
Trust that inner nudge that's happening, because you know deep down inside, if you're not in alignment, it doesn't feel great. It feels like there's this just niggling within that for me was, this is not it, Michelle. Like, this is not it. There's more for you. And I ignored that for so long. And I pretended to the outside world that I was okay and that I was this amazing nurse. And I am a great nurse, but I pretended that I was this nurse and a mum of 3 and I was working full time and I had it all going on. And yet I was so broken inside. So I think when you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people ignore that. Don't ignore that. If you've got a little niggle inside or just that little tap on the shoulder saying, you've got to sort this out, there's more for you out there, that's where you need to listen and follow that. Really trust that inner nudge.
Thank you. Michelle, where can people find you?
I'm mostly on Instagram.
I have Instagram.
Oh, me too. Me too. I share so many things on Instagram. I have a link on Instagram where I've got free ebooks and people can book a clarity call with me. So I'm on Instagram at @MichelleGordon_coach.
I love it. I just want to put this plug for anyone that is listening. If you are showing up every day and wondering what life is going to bring you next and what burden you're quote unquote going to have to deal with, that is not normal. That is not a life worth living. That is not anything that is for you. And so I would offer up to get connected with Michelle, because it is worth your investment and your time to yourself that you take good care, and whatever that looks like. And it's not good care found in the next battle or found in the next drug, whatever it is. So while this episode could feel a little bit heavy, I do want people to understand that this is real life, that moms and women in particular show up this way every day. And it is hard sometimes. And life is hard. Life is hard when you're a mom. Life is hard when you're working a full-time job. And so if life feels really, really hard, I know that without a shadow of a doubt, Michelle has open arms for you. And I'm sure that they could slide into your Instagram DMs and have a conversation with you if it feels scary. So I just want people to understand that there is a place that you can be held. And I know that Michelle has tips and tools for you to be able to get reconnected with yourself back into the world. So Michelle, thank you so much for sharing your story and your heart, and honestly, for doing the work that you do out in the world. You are needed sorely.
Thank you. I've loved this conversation, Cal. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. All right. I will leave all of her links to Michelle Gordon in the show notes, and I encourage you to tap in. That's all for today. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning into the show today. If you heard something that helped you, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with your friends. This helps more people just like you become inspired to move the needle of their big CEO energy into a positive direction. If you would like to learn more about how I can help you streamline and position your business for growth or lead your business as a CEO, feel free to jump into the show notes with all of the links to find me. And don't forget to head over to Instagram so we can be pals.